This week, my guest is internet historian Katherine Dee. You made a lot of predictions about just the pendulum swinging against the kind of sexual revolution, and where are you seeing these fringe trends that are boiling over, as you put in your piece at the end?
The first thing you do is, where do journalists congregate? Twitter, right? There's, thousands of subcultures on Twitter, but there's certain subcultures that have bleed over with influential people, journalists being one set. And whoever the journalists are going to bump into in terms of small communities are the communities that are probably going to get written about. As they get written about, it creates a feedback loop.
This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. If you like our work and want to support us, the best way to do that is join PHETASY.com. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes content, outtakes, discounts on merch, and the ability to submit questions for some of our upcoming guests. Support your favorite scrappy little internet heroes at PHETASY.com. All right. I'm with Katherine Dee, also known as Default Friend, I believe. Are you okay with being introduced like that?
Yeah.
Okay. How many names do you have? I have a bunch too.
Yeah, I have a lot of names because I have all my stage names, and then I have all my physical world names.
And when you say stage names, do you mean physical stage or online stage?
The online stage, the cyber stage.
Yeah, the cyber stage.
Yeah.
I never really had heard of pseudonymity until I was reading some of your work. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, just people take stage names, right? That's the that's the best way to put it. Stage names usually for writing.
Yeah, I have to always explain how I got my name, because I made up a word for my company, which was Phetasy. And this was at the dawn of kind of social media. So it was like 2005, 2006. And everyone was telling me I had to get on social media to promote my business. And I'm kind of naturally skeptic and I was always very, I think we're kind of like the last generation that remembers what life was like before the internet. So I was I was always a little sketched out by the internet and how many people could be anonymous and who was I talking to. And it was very strange to me. So I didn't want to put my real name out there. So I just took my company name as my last name, and then it just stuck. And then it actually morphed into my physical stage name when I was doing comedy. So it existed online before it even existed in the real world.
Now
it's just my stage name, my pseudonym.
As many people have pointed out, Katherine Dee isn't my name, right? It's just because I think I wanted to publish with The Spectator or something, and they're like, we're not publishing Default Friend, but a lot of places had, right? Maybe it was Unheard. It was one of these British, culture commentary things.
They're proper.
They're like, absolutely not. And I was like, all right. The Washington Examiner will do it, but I guess if y'all want. So I just I anglicized my actual name, or one of my names. I was like, that works. And so I'll see sometimes people, I've been doxxed a number of times, I'll see some people say she picked the laziest pseudonym in the world. I'm like, well, I didn't realize it was going to stick, but then it just
yeah. Do you find that when people introduce you that way, does it trigger something in you, like, oh, I'm performing?
No,
is there some separation?
It's there is a little bit, not much. It's been really strange. My mom will be like, why don't you ever publish under the name she gave me? And hearing that name at this point, because I've been going by Katherine for so long, and I feel so vulnerable. I'm like, don't say it. It's like a magical I feel naked or something. And the idea of writing a book or something with my my government name just is like so disturbing to me, and I didn't think I would ever have that kind of like visceral reaction to hearing my name.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that way when people ask me about why I don't use my birth name, and it does feel very open, you know. I'm like, I don't need to know. I don't need to do that.
Right, like I'm not.
That girl is dead.
I kind of
No.
feel like that. No, like
Yeah.
it's like that person doesn't live here anymore.
Yeah, she's gone. It is a strange thing about the way that we can create these personas or personalities, or I don't even know. It's weird because I don't like to say that my online persona is a persona. There's really not much difference between who I am on Twitter and who I am in real life. I think I probably am more domesticated than people realize. Like I like to cook, and especially when I was writing for Playboy, they were like, you know how to clean? You like to cook?" And all these things. I don't know what they thought I was doing for food, but I guess just eating out or something. But yeah, so there's those things that people might not know about me because they're assuming something about who I am based on what's out there. But mm, there isn't really, I'm not like creating some big, like Alex Jones persona or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know if
Do you
he's
ever?
a persona.
I don't know. I kind of don't know. He has to be, right? He has to be mostly.
I don't know. He tried to argue that he was, you know.
God,
That was the argument.
I mean, the thing about Alex Jones is like, I mean, I feel like he's a persona, but it's not. He didn't think about it that much. I mean, this is a pet peeve of mine. I like irrationally hate it when people say Alex Jones, Donald Trump, any of these guys are performance artists. It's like, no, they're not. That's just like
No.
that. They ham it up, but that's not perform. It's not like I think of a persona as like constructed in a very deliberate way. There's no
Right.
way Alex Jones is thinking about it. You know what I mean? He's just kind of like doing a lot
Right.
of coke and going off.
Yeah, I would think of a performance artist as someone who's intentional about it. Whereas I think these, like you said, these people see what works with a crowd and then lean into that.
Right. Well, and to I guess circle back to us, like I'm not intentional. There's no. I think I'm maybe a persona like insofar as you're a different person at the office, right? I'm not
Mhm.
intentional about it at all, though. I try not to overshare. I often do, but that's the only thing I think.
I always overshare too, and it's something that I'm so self-conscious about I know there's probably, and maybe you have some opinions on this, because I think if you spend enough time online like you do, as you call yourself an internet junkie, um, yeah, I guess we should talk about who you are and what you do for the audience. You're a writer, but you're also I've seen you called an internet historian. I don't know if that's a label you gave yourself or if that was put upon you.
I mean, sort of, right? A lot of my writing, I go like through archives of old internet stuff, so it felt I wanted to somehow like characterize what I do. I mean, this is a big question. Everyone's like, who the hell is she, and why do people keep inviting her on podcasts?
That's like me though.
Yeah, it's like
We have a lot of this in common.
so I'm a writer. I journalist might actually be the word. I've been avoiding it, but
Yeah.
I'm a columnist at the Washington Examiner, and I regularly contribute to Tablet. So I do get paid, and
Yes.
it's mostly like internet culture stuff, and it's a lot of like internet history. So not just like internet culture, like TikTok trends of the week, but like going through like like Usenet archives and trying to construct stories based on what fragments exist, and tracking people down and talking to people about their internet experiences.
Okay. And when did you first go online?
Oh my, that's maybe 1997.
How old were you?
5.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been in front of a screen for a long time. I mean, it wasn't unsupervised at that age, but
Yeah.
unsupervised, probably like 8 or 9, maybe even a little young, 7.
Ugh, it's so crazy because, again, the internet didn't exist when I was 5, or it was like in its only for nerds phase. And we have a daughter, and we have to FaceTime with all the grandparents because they live far away. So we're constantly FaceTiming. And then we have our phones around, and I'm trying to be more conscious of not having it around. But as I was mentioning to you before we started recording, I'm trying to balance working from home and being a stay-at-home mom, which is a disaster. And I don't have a nanny or anything. So it's like I sometimes am trying to, it's not good. I really shouldn't do it, but I'm trying to work and let her play or whatever. But she notices the phone. And just today we were FaceTiming my sister. It's her birthday. And I took it away from her when we were done. And she was like high pitched scream. And I was like, oh no, already, already. They get so addicted to the screens. There's something so compelling about them.
Yeah, well, I think like even the color, like I've heard that the color scheme too also like keeps you addicted. So it's like you're addicted on all these like levels you don't even realize. It's more than just
Wow.
the stimulus or like the immediate,
So,
reward.
what do you think? Do you, in what ways do you feel like your brain is different from someone like mine who hasn't really grown up in front of a screen?
Um, well, I mean, so I've been trying to like undo this sort of in recent history. But like me online and me in the physical world is sort of like one fluid movement, right? So there's no sort of differentiation, um, which might be something like there's no boundary there. The internet like really feels like an extension of me somehow. Um, it's like going from room to room. I would say is like the
Mm,
difference. I mean, there's probably a lot about how I view relationships too. Like internet friendships to me are as real as physical world friendships.
hmm.
So there's that differentiation. How much I communicate, I'm hyper communicative. Um, that I'd say those are probably the big ones, and those are the things that I run into trouble with other people, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
always available in a way that's like very second nature, and so me being always available means something very different than someone else always being available.
Do you find that that is an age thing, or is it just is it like your people in your generation all seem to be that way, or is it something that you struggle with and you notice it's like people who are older, even maybe people who are younger?
Um,
I don't know where they're sitting these days.
I think it depends on the person. I think and this might also just be like a me thing too. It might not be like internet specific, but like
Right.
usually like always being available speaks to like where the relationship's at with someone. But me always being available is just because like I'm always sort of just always there, right? Like it's second nature for me to respond immediately. Um,
Mm,
so that's like usually it's a signal of something pretty meaningful, and I think that's intergenerational. But for
okay.
me, right, it's because it's just like I'm kind of, I'm not trying to do this less, but I'm used to always looking at a screen, right? So unless I'm writing, it's like very, very easy to get in touch with me. So I'm very
Why
accessible.
yeah, why are you trying to do it less?
It's just like too. I don't know. I feel like I like sort of like metaphorically looked in the mirror one day and I'm like this has to end. This is too much. I'm done. I had to change something.
Done done with being like an internet junkie?
Yeah, like I am too online. Like
Mm.
there's more to life than being this online. I gotta chill out.
I feel like I'm very online, and then in touch with people who are very, very online, and I realize that I'm not maybe as online as I think I am because
Yeah, I've had that
I don't
experience too.
understand like half of what the people are saying.
Well, it can mean different things, right? There's like you know, literally always being online. And then there's some sort of like cultural dimension of it. Like there are certainly like tons of people who are like more like culturally online than I am. But I'm like literally, like I'm physically always online, right? And there's people who are culturally online who maybe aren't using the internet as much as I do. So there's different, and then there's where online you are, right? Like, internet culture isn't just what happens on like 4chan to the 4chan to like right wing Twitter pipeline, or like, whatever Discord servers,
Right.
whatever, are creating this culture, which is I think is kind of, for a lot of people that's interchangeable, but that you could be very online and be like addicted to some like knitting forum or something, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that's what's so crazy about the wild west of the internet, is that there are so many different little communities and all the people, and they have their own language, and they have their own social norms, and they have their own rules of engagement, and it's really fascinating. I wonder, and I have a lot of friends online that I consider, I maybe haven't even met them in real life, but they feel very much as real to me as friends that I have in real life. And that's the product of being probably on Twitter too much, to be honest. But I also think you can, I don't know, I feel like sometimes I can get a better sense of who someone is just from reading their Twitter account than I can from maybe meeting them and having a conversation with them in real life.
That's yeah,
Sometimes
that's
people are much more transparent online than they are in real life, actually, which is a weird paradox for all of the anonymous hiding that people do and the personas and whatnot. I still feel like, unless they're like a true sociopath, you can get a pretty good sense of someone from what they're putting out there
I think it's
sometimes.
I'm of two minds on this. I'm kind of torn, because like, on Twitter, it depends on what kind of account they have, right? Because
Mhm.
often, like, tweets are influenced by what's going on in the group chat, or like how much engagement you want, or what subculture, you're trying to curry favor with, or you're already in and have some influence in. So it kind of depends. I've had the opposite experience where it's like I meet people and I'm like, I shouldn't have let your Twitter persona get to me so much, because
Ah,
I think the Twitter persona is a mask, actually. And I think for some people, probably we're two really good examples of it. Again, it's like one fluid sort of thing. It's like we are our Twitter personas pretty much.
yeah,
But I think for a lot of people, it's a little bit more constructed.
like yeah, or like Adderall fueled ego.
Sure. And that's another, that's something I've been thinking about all the time. Like, we all know everyone's addicted to Adderall, but I feel like we don't really think about like what are the knock-on effects of that? Like, does anyone really sit down and think about what Adderall does to like your emotional state?
I
It does
do.
more than, yeah, it gives you tunnel vision. It also gives you like emotional tunnel vision. And then there's the
Yeah, and
crash.
makes you, like, rage at it. I mean, I've dated guys where I'm like, "Yeah, you'll be fine when you get off the meth," and they don't even realize that they're addicted to
Right.
Adderall because they don't think it's something that they're addicted to. But when I was kind of coming up in the culture war, which, as, like, an accidental pundit, which is really the only way to describe it, I recognized from being around the people in real life, like in DC and in New York, I'm like, oh my God, they're all popping Adderall. Like every freaking journalist out there is addicted to Adderall. And being sober gave me a different perspective on that. I was like, because people would be like, oh, just I'm on deadline. Like, hey, just take an Adderall. I'm like, I can't just like pop speed whenever I want. And it
It,
is just legal speed.
yeah.
It's crazy.
It numbs your emotions too, which I don't
Mhm.
think people talk. Like, you can't feel things, you can only think things, but it's a very uncreative thought. I mean, I feel like there's so many, like, it really should be, if anything needs a personal essay, it's a, let's talk about the Adderall epidemic.
Actually, maybe I'll have my friend write one because this friend he's talked about like having had kind of some awareness around this and what it's done and being on it and then coming off of it. And uh, I don't know. I think that and it's just interesting to me that there's an Adderall shortage in America. Like, how many people are on Adderall that we're out of it?
A lot, right? Now people are
Yeah.
like trying to like backdoors in or like, well, if you ask for like a 7.5 milligram prescription, then it's like, no one gets those, and then you just take four of that. It's like all these weird sort of
So when I
solutions.
was doing drugs, I was always really I was one of those weirdos that was like 90s kid, very skeptical of big pharma. And I was in rehab and they tried to get me to take a bunch of meds and I wouldn't. And then when I got out, a lot of people, a lot of my friends when I was in the 2000s partying and doing blow and all those things before you would have to test it for fentanyl. You my we like ran out of blow once and my friend was like, "Just take one of my Adderall." And I was like, I've never tried that, but I will because we're out and I just she's like, "It'll just keep you up." But I took it and like my jaw was I was like, "This is speed." It was so much stronger than I thought it was going to be. I was like, "You take this regularly and like a lot of it? This stuff is." I was so shocked at how strong it was. I had my whole like jaw moving. I felt like I was on meth in 98.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you build up a tolerance, you take more and more and more. Um,
Yeah, it was surprising to me how strong it was. I remember that. I remember exactly where I was. I was at this, like, pool party in Hollywood, and I was like, "This stuff is so str." I thought it was gonna just be, like, a nice thing to keep me from falling asleep, but it was just I was very
well, yeah, I
racy.
mean, the euphoria, I feel like probably most people on it don't experience that euphoria at this point, but like that's what
Mm.
gets people hooked. Like I saw a TikTok, and speaking of other addictive things, that was like, stop. You're not addicted to like the focus that you get on Adderall. You're addicted to like the euphoria that you don't feel anymore because you've burnt your brain out.
Yeah, you're dead inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I think that probably I try to remember that a lot when I'm online to have grace for people because I'm always like, who knows what cocktail of substances people are on when they're engaging
Oh
online. I
yeah.
know what I'm like in real life when I drink, but I can't imagine what I would have been like. Twitter's kind of one of the reasons that I quit drinking because I kept joking about being an alcoholic. And I was 2013 and I'd gone on in 2000, I think probably 8, and I just didn't like it. I didn't really get it. I didn't like it. I got in trouble immediately. I got blocked by like Demi Moore, I think, because I was trolling celebrities, and then I was like, "They listen to you?" That was surprising to me, and I was like, "I probably should stay off this medium," and and then I ended up going back on in 2013 and got very addicted to it. I was quitting, and it was one of the things that led me to realize I think I had a drinking problem just because of how much I joked about it, but also I was like, "I can't drink and tweet."
Yeah, drunk tweeting, that's not, I mean, guilty as charged. Like I actually I was just in New Orleans, and the first night I was there, I accidentally got drunk. It's usually not an accident, but this time really was an accident. And I looked at my phone the next morning, it was like a drive-by shooting of just like drunk texts and things I like wish I hadn't said. And like I am so glad my Twitter is deleted because if it was active, I don't know, I'd probably be deleting it. I would be so upset.
Has anyone invented a breathalyzer that you have to take to unlock your phone?
That I'm sure that like that would at least have like a faddish moment, right? Like
I feel
they'd
like
at
you would
least
make a
try.
couple of million just yeah, off the, like, first wave of people doing it, and then yeah, but then it would just be like all my friends who used to have breathalyzers to start their cars when they got DUIs, they would just have, like, you blow into it, the sober friend. But I always said there should be, like, a breathalyzer to even unlock a Twitter account or something. I do think a lot of people who get into these I'll watch, like I do find some there's so much drama, and I don't like to be the person with popcorn watching people fight on Twitter, but when 2 big Twitter personalities or a celebrity and a journalist if people are going at it, I can't help but like Cardi B and Candace Owens are fighting publicly. There is a part of me that's
It's
like,
fun.
I can't. I love watching this. Yeah.
I loved, I don't know if you saw this go down, but the like ongoing, saga of Wesley Yang and Jason Stanley.
No, I
I
haven't
don't even
seen this.
remember what the conflict was. I know Jason Stanley's off Twitter now, thank God. Poor guy, everyone hates him, and I have no idea, and I don't know anything about him. I just feel bad for him, right? Because I walk into a bookstore, I see this, this man's he's publishing books, he's trying at least. I don't know if he's smug or not. I don't know what his deal is, but it's like the first thing I think is his Twitter account. You
That's
know,
so funny.
it's like this
Yeah.
poor guy. You work your whole life, and then you become a joke because you get too emotional online.
Yeah, this is the thing that I've really been trying to get my mind around is that term, what is it? Oh, a lol cow, is that what
Oh
it
yeah,
is?
yeah. I mean,
Is that
I
even how
want
you pronounce it? I'm like, I feel like such a boomer right
yeah.
now.
Like I think all journalists, right? Eventually, if they're on Twitter long enough, they become a lol cow. And like, is there going to be a class action lawsuit because of like the mental health impacts, right? Because you need the Twitter account to be a journalist. You really can't be a journalist without Twitter. I mean, you're getting half your stories are like downstream of Twitter drama, right? And you need it
Mm.
to promote yourself. You need to be a personality. And then it's like, you know, obviously you're going to collect haters, and it drives you crazy. It just like I feel bad for people. Like I think we compassion for the law cow.
Can you explain what that is? Because I don't think that term has quite jumped to the mainstream yet, although I feel like it's right on the cusp of going mainstream, and pretty soon conservatives will be using it and then it will be dead.
Yeah.
It's the
Um,
cycle.
That's yeah. So a law cow, so like law, like LOL, right? And it's a cow because you can milk them for laughs, right? Because they're
Mm.
drama queens, basically. And the idea with the law cow is that it's often their fault because it's like a feedback loop of meltdowns. But it's like when you're I feel like people don't really have enough compassion. Like it really warps your mind and like how you behave. And like once you start down that path, it is really hard to like extricate yourself from it. Like it is like even if you're a mature person, there's something about it. Once you go down the drama, the online drama path, it's like you need to like log off, or you're kind of you're up shit's
Yeah.
creek.
And is it someone who's self-aware about what is going on, or is there a lack of self-awareness?
I mean, it depends, right? It depends
Mhm.
on the law cow.
Can you give me some examples of some good lol cows?
So like the classic, the original law cow is Chris Chan, right? Who recently, uh,
Who's Christian?
so Chris Chan's story took a dark. You might have, I don't know what pronouns you might have seen him trend on Twitter. Like I think like it was like last summer, maybe, or was it this summer? Because he started having sex with his mother, so got arrested. But I mean, the reason Kiwi Farms exists is because of Chris Chan. He's sort of like the figure of internet drama, but he's been like trolled he's this autistic guy who has done like a number of sort of weird things. Like first he had I don't know if this was first or second, but he had this comic called Sonichu, which was Sonic and Pikachu, and it's like a child drew it, right? And he's like
Mhm.
very sort of territorial about it. And then he like was searching his community college for a boyfriend free girl. He had this like bananas poster sort of advertising, and he's it's like sort of one thing after another. And there's this whole, I mean, there's like an encyclopedia's worth of lore about this guy. He's allegedly the most documented person online. There's a
Wow,
yeah, there's people, they call themselves Christorians, or historians of Chris Chan.
that's
um
hilarious.
but yeah, he's a lol cow. He's almost like too much, right? Like that's almost too big for him to be an example. He's like sort of the Jesus of, well, anyway, that's a weird comparison. Uh,
Jesus of lol cows.
yeah. Jason Stanley, who I already mentioned,
Uh-huh.
of Yale, he's a lol cow. Taylor Lorenz is a lol cow. Often it's like
Uh,
journalists, professors, writers. Stephen King has been a lol cow in his days. Some people think J.K. Rowling is, but it depends on what side of the divide of the culture war.
so It's so funny because you mentioned kiwi farms, and I don't even think most people know what kiwi farms is. Again, this I don't know that it's a mainstream thing.
Yeah, it might not be. So Kiwi Farms was in the news recently because they kind of got banished from the internet. They're still kicking. Their founder, or I guess not founder, maybe like owner at this point, Joshua Moon, also known as Null, has really been working hard to keep it alive. But it's basically a gossip forum that has been mischaracterized as like a far right hate forum because they have very lax moderation. But it's essentially for people to like collect gossip, and like doxes do end up there because they like aggregate like publicly available information and then they
Okay.
deconstruct people, and it's often like very mean spirited. But
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of places like this online, these like gossip forums, and they're like interactive tabloids almost.
Right. That's really fascinating. I think I remember it was all about, like, there was a trans woman who was doxxed or something, and this
Yeah,
is a
allegedly, right?
allegedly, yeah, and it was yeah, that was when I first started getting it's funny, I don't think people realize too how much goes on in the, like, group chats, because that's
Yeah.
when I started you always hear about everything first in the group chat because someone picks it up who's very online, or someone has some interaction, or they heard about it, and then it trickles into, like you said, it kind of funnels into tweets, and people are vetting things in the group chat. They're like, is this real? Has anyone seen this? Can this be verified? And I that's also where I always feel like a boomer, because I don't know that I live so much online, and it's interesting because people who do live online, it's when they're speaking about this stuff and interacting, I it's almost like another language that people
Oh
are
yeah.
like, you live in another country, and I don't know what the customs are there, and I don't know what these terms are, and I constantly have to keep asking questions, and I wonder what but I don't think it's like a generational thing
Oh yeah.
necessarily,
No,
because
I
I
don't think
don't
it is
know that
either.
my nephews who are younger would even know about this. Maybe the youngest, but he's very online. My youngest, the youngest of like my sisters, she has 3 boys, and he's 14. So he might have some semblance of what we're talking about, just no and lives on TikTok. He was the first person I heard about, like, the pick me girl. I'd never heard that term until he was like, "That girl has pick me energy on the beach," or something. I was like, "What? What is that?" And he was like, "Oh, pick me girl," and had to explain it to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not necessarily generational. It's like
Yeah.
but it can sometimes be generational because I think a lot of younger people feel like they don't really have like, options in the physical world.
Mm.
Which is so weird
This
that I
is
like realize like it's kind of like creepy that I like make that distinction. But like saying, in real life or like that it's somehow different than real life has started to feel like that's not the right distinction. But in the physical world, as though it's a different place, also feels maybe that's not quite right
but
either.
it is true, though. I think that they have these communities online, and that becomes their world, and like you said, there's not much of a boundary, but then there's that sense of, like bowling alone. You're not getting together in community settings and getting we my friends and I used to like meet up at the mall, that was what we did to socialize because malls still existed. and and because that was just where we went and hung out and got together and ran around and gossiped and made trouble, and but now you don't have to do that. You can just go to the, like, mall, online.
Right, you go to the
That
group
people can
chat.
talk. Yeah, the group chat. Yeah, it's really I really am so fascinated with media and internet culture, and I've been doing a series on this podcast with this guy, Thomas De Tita, who wrote this book, Mediated, and it's brilliant, and he wrote it in 2006, really pre-social media, and so much of the stuff that he wrote about was he just saw the writing on the wall. And so we've been talking just about, in the dawn of social media, it's been kind of poured gasoline on a lot of the trends that he was already seeing. I see you as somebody who's one of those prophets. He's a prophet in a different way. He was really coming at it from, like, how is this affecting us philosophically as humans? All of this media and being self-reflexive and constantly being flattered by everything, you know, being able to put your preferences everywhere. What is that actually doing to us philosophically and just our brains? And I love how you look at things, and you are like this little. I'm like, "I'm going to talk to the oracle today." That's what I was telling my cousin. I'm like, if you're online enough and you do have a brain that's just so fascinating to me, you can start seeing trends and making predictions that. And I think you just have an insightful eye. You wrote this one piece, "The Coming Wave of Sex Negativity," in March of 2021, or at least that's where I've seen it first on your Substack, and which everyone should subscribe to. And man, did that come true. Very quickly after you wrote that.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to. The thing is, like, look at what's happening at the fringes, and then it's always bound to explode, right? So, like,
Mhm.
where are things at in the trend cycle? If there's like critical mass, right? If you catch it early enough in the trend cycle, it's going to go through it's going to just made a wave with my hand for people who can't
Yes.
see. But and so what I do is I basically like guess. I look at things that are early in the trend cycle and guess which ones will have longevity. Um,
Do you did you study? Did you go to college, or did you what did
yeah,
you go to school for?
I went to film school,
Okay.
so
And
it's sort of
so so what?
I
Sorry.
sort of a not like marketing or anything, but yeah,
Yeah.
I went to NYU. I studied dramatic writing.
Okay. Is that where you learn stuff like trend cycles and whatnot, is in, like, marketing schools,
I don't know. I guess like business school, maybe. Like
business
it seems like
schools,
business school,
maybe?
maybe like media studies.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like you naturally do media studies, though, and you made a lot of predictions about just the pendulum swinging against the kind of sexual revolution. And where are you seeing these fringe trends in kind of that are boiling over, as you put in your piece at the end?
So here's a secret, right? So you have okay, you the first thing you do is where do journalists congregate? Twitter, right? You pay attention to there's tons of there's thousands of subcultures on Twitter, but there's certain subcultures that have bleed over with influential people, journalists being one set. And whoever the journalists are going to bump into in terms of small communities are the communities that are probably going to get written about. As they get written about, it creates a feedback loop. Um,
Mhm.
so basically what I did was like, all right, so people are always paying attention to the dissident or alt right. Here's one section of it that seems to be growing. Journalists are going to write about it. As journalists write about it, it's going to bring more attention to it. People are going to say, "Oh, that's a good way to grift and make money." Then they're going to create more account, and then it grows, but it influences other people as they see it, and maybe it's not the most, maybe it's not a nationwide or worldwide trend, but you can kind of say, "Okay, this is gonna there's heat here, right?" So that's one way to do it. Or you see like which platforms younger people are paying attention to, and you kind of do the same thing, like where are these people going to bump into influence, and then you
Mm.
just sort of guess which ones based on like where certain influential people are like kind of poking their head in, because you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
People don't become sort of independently influential. You need something, you still need something institutional that's like helping to blow you up.
Right. Interesting. I've been really fascinated with the my obsession right now is the AI art and the art world and all of the conflict of the people who are pro AI art versus the people who are very much like get these AI creators out of here and no AI art allowed, and that seems like something that will boil over to me. I'm not sure how, but that it's such a if you go into those cultures and go into those forums and the even just on Twitter, there's so much engagement and interaction and conversation and fighting about it right now, and it's not really jumped to the mainstream yet. That whole battle that's actually raging right now. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I just read an article about this actually. Like, I feel like the impacts of AI sort of becoming like a super intelligent like spell check for all of us. Like, everyone just talks about like, oh, students aren't going to write essays anymore and graphic designers are going to be out of work, but there's so many different, like, there's so much potential there on how things are going to change that I don't think we really like appreciate, because there's going to be a counterculture to that, right? So that's like
Right.
that's I think pretty interesting. Like, it might actually give that, like, the revival of localism, or like, people will place a premium on things that can only be verified with physical experience is another one.
Mhm.
Or maybe like blockchain finally has its moment, and like someone starts a messaging app where like there's a blockchain verification to make sure you're talking to who you're talking to on each. There's so many different ways that could manifest.
That's really interesting, is also recognizing the trends and then realizing there will be a counter to that. The what you were talking about in your piece about the coming wave of sex negativity, I thought was really interesting because I'm already seeing it. Obviously, I wrote a piece that I hadn't read your piece, but when I was reading, I'm like, well, I'm proof of this backlash of the women kind of stumbling out of the sexual revolution and coming back and saying, you need to turn around. There's nothing for you there. But I also think it's interesting what you're saying about young, women having middle and upper class women having babies younger, more of them, and being closer to home. But I was talking to my cousin about this before we started recording, and she was saying that remote work has enabled that too, because before you had to move to a city to kind of do what you wanted to do. And now, in some ways, you can have the best of both worlds and go move home. It's something I've considered having my daughter because you just need that support when you have kids. Strangers and even friends aren't going to help you with your kids the way that family will. They just won't.
And why would you trust them to?
Yeah, why would you trust them? I trust my daughter with my sisters. They all have kids. But I do see that the explosion of remote work enabling this trend that might, like, you kind of foresee. And I think I am one of those people that I hate, where I come from that sexually liberated culture and thought I was going to be single forever and really didn't expect to have kids, and now that I have one, I'm like, everyone needs to have babies. They're the best. Go and breed, please. I hate that about myself, but I wish that um even just one of the downsides of waiting as long as people are waiting is, and there's a lot, women I think are being lied to about how long you can wait before it gets challenging. But aside from that, our parents are old. They always joke like, "Oh, if you had had her 20 years ago, we'd be able to help more, but also have a longer time with her." And that alone is a reason that I don't even know that people really consider when they're thinking of having kids and when they should have kids, is if you're pushing your age, you're also pushing the limits of how long their grandparents are going to be around.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like, it's you don't realize it when you're younger,
Mhm.
but having, like, it's, a lot of people find that they just don't have. I mean, and also your kids will have parents for less time.
Yeah, I know. This is a sad thing I think about too, and also one of the reasons why I'm like, she needs a sibling. She can't be all alone out there.
Yeah, I don't think people I think people think too much in the present moment and don't project forward enough. This is a
Interesting.
good example because you
Why
don't
do you
really.
think go on.
I was gonna say you don't really maybe because you don't want to think about it, but
Yeah.
uh, it creates a very lonely world for when those children are 30, 40, 50 themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, the problem with that kind of it's always fascinating to me having being at this age that I'm at, we're starting to have the, like, hard conversations with my cousins and I are there's we come from a huge family, and we're all having these conversations with our parents, like, "Do you know what you want?" And they don't even wanna think about it, and I understand that. I think contemplating your mortality is not, always a fun venture, but necessary. And even having a child, I've had to be like, "Oh, I need life insurance and a will and all this stuff that being single, I didn't okay, no one cares. I just wanted to make sure people knew what to do with my social media accounts." I have a DNR on all my social media. There's not gonna be, like, a virtual memorial where you can go read my old tweets from 2016.
Yeah, that's I have it set up so my sister can get into all my stuff if I die, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll just be like, please nuke it.
Just nuke it. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm gone, there's not gonna be some weird virtual Bridget still just eternally online. That just seems but some people don't make those kinds of preparations and then
Because
their
sometimes you
family
don't
can
have a
never
choice, right? Like some
yeah,
people just become memes or something and like, transcend themselves in this kind of sad way.
lol cows.
Sort of. Like, I don't know, I think about like the like sort of like the Marilyn Monroeification of like certain internet celebrities, like they die or like they just go offline and they're like there's this collective lack of closure and then they're just sort of floating in the ether, a symbol of like whatever, subculture they came from. It's kind of like
Who's a good example of someone like that?
so Ziz, who was a bodybuilder, who died in a Thai sauna, and he made like inspirational videos and stuff, and is like he like there's all these like stickers and pictures and stuff of him doing this one pose, which I won't do because I think I've sweat through this shirt quite a bit. Um, yeah, I mean, Amy Therese, if anyone's listening, is like very big on Twitter, who does a lot of like politics schizo posting, is sort of like this, where it's like whether or not her account is banned, there's sort of this ghost of Amy Therese that is like constantly in the ether, and it's like kind of sad. And like Selena, actually, the singer Selena
Mm,
is like this, and also like Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, like all of these people, right? These are like older versions of this, where it's like they're dead, but they're still sort of there's like
there.
yeah, in this really uncomfortable way. And I'm sure their physical living selves would be totally disturbed by it. But it also happens to like ordinary people online.
There was a weird, like, stupid argument. I was like, just don't even get into this with anyone, Bridget. But for some reason, Twitter is now unverifying dead celebrities. So
What?
Bob Saget, yeah, no, it's weird. So I think it's weird. And someone's like, who cares if they're verified? And like, they're not going to care. So Bob Saget's wife, who I know, was tweeting and she was like, I just noticed it's a year of his, like, anniversary, and they unverified his account. And then people were being so mean to her, and they're like, "Who cares? Blah blah blah." But as she was saying, she's like, "The only reason I'm asking Elon to re-verify him is because he loved Twitter, and I know he would be upset about this. And now, how do you know that these are his tweets if you are looking for his old account for
But
sure?
what
If you're
like a
someone
bananas thing to do? Why are they doing it?
they did it to Norm Macdonald too, and people were like, "He doesn't need that in the afterlife or in like he's dead. He doesn't need that anymore." But I'm like, "Yeah, but the same argument could be made like why do you need to unverify them then either?" It's so that is just the weirdest.
Like, do they have a list of like dead people? Like
I don't know. I
that's
don't know if
very
it's because their
strange.
account's been, like, inactive for a certain period of time, which would be my good faith guess on why that would be happening, but that still seems so there should be some kind of I don't know. It was weird. That seemed like I don't care. I'm nobody. Take my blue check and send it into the ocean. I've been making verified nobody merch since before you could even buy it. It's always been a joke to me. But someone like Bob Saget, who's like an icon in comedy, or Norm Macdonald, you're going to take their blue check away? This seems so
It's
cruel.
weird. It is. It's really
It is
weird.
weird. Yeah. I'm glad I wasn't, and people were like coming after me. I'm like, just go to bed, Bridget. Don't engage. Do not engage. Because people are like, I don't think he cares. Like, well, you A, can't know that, and B, it seems just like a weird thing to do. It just seems weird. I was like, is this just Elon having like a god complex, or what's going on here?
Do you think Twitter is gonna implode with
I don't know. It's weird. It's been not lately. I feel like I'm screaming, and I don't know if I'm being like, I hate the shadow banning thing. It makes you so paranoid, and I just like don't care. Usually it's frustrating because we definitely get throttled on YouTube for sure. So you see how that affects everything really downstream of they don't have to like ban you. They can just make you invisible, which is even more
oh my
frustrating in some
yeah,
respects, because then you can't go on the like grievance circuit and be like, listen up, Tucker, here's here's what happened to my account. And then, you get like, that's one of the things that I rage against and try not to do, but I understand why people do it, because it's so lucrative
it's like a
to.
second chance at life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can be like, I'm being oppressed. So I think they're kind of on to that, and now they know that the best thing is to just basically silence you. But it has been weird. I haven't been seeing people like even on my list. Someone told me they had to refollow me. A bunch of people have been telling me that. I feel like I've been like screaming into the ether a little bit, but as when you put that out there, then you'll hear that everyone's feeling that way slightly. Like they're feeling like they're not seeing the people they normally see. They have to go search for them. So I don't know what's going on there. It seems like everyone's in their own world. It doesn't feel as connected as it used to feel to me. But I
Maybe
don't
we
know
should
if
all
that's
get on
just
TikTok.
I can't do it.
I started making like really like low rent, like awful, like my camera's like right here, kind of TikToks. I changed my uh pseudonym, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm trying again. I'm doing something new.
You can do that though. You're just a shapeshifter. You're good at that. You're able to you're like you are like the chameleon of the internet. You can just kind of morph into a community and find.
I don't know if that's true. I wish that was true. I think my life would be a little easier as a content creator, not as a person. um,
Yeah, it is weird though. I don't know if it'll implode. I don't know. I Part of me, in so many ways, Twitter made me. It was the social media I took most naturally to, and I would not have the connection. It's how I found all my editors. It's how I got my start in my writing career. It's just, I joke that this podcast should be called All of My Friends Are From Twitter. That's not so much the case anymore, but it definitely gave me wings, and in a sense.
Me too. Twitter literally changed my like. It, if I'd sound like I'd sound like one of those like Guardian articles where like some woman like glances at a guy in a bar and then nukes her life. If I went into the whole story, but like that we all make fun of, but like no, literally like Twitter was the guy that I glanced at the bar that caused me to, you know what I mean? It completely, completely changed my life. So I'm right
Yeah.
there with you.
So I would be sad to see it go. I love it, and it really is like the Thunderdome in so many ways, where you get to just see these. It's like a think tank. Also, it's fascinating, and people are always threatening to go to these other places, but
And they never do.
nobody.
They're not going to
No,
Mastodon. What the hell are you
and
like?
you're You're going to go to Parlor and then just be in an echo chamber. You actually don't want an echo chamber. You want to be
Right.
dunking on these left-wing journalists that you can't stand. You guys need each other. Yeah, Mastodon or whatever, which sounds crazy. It's just like someone has a server in their basement and and allows you on it. I don't understand.
It's not for it's too I mean, the Fediverse is too federated for journalists. They need something centralized, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just not going to work.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't, but it does seem like it's going through some kind of
Did Lex Friedman
changes.
ever take over? I'm like totally unplugged. I did like
I don't
literally
think so.
one
He
day I
did a
was
book
like, fuck
list and then
this.
everybody dunked on him.
And then he's gone, he's done.
No, I mean, it just was stupid. It was like this outsized reaction to somebody posting their reading list for the year. It's like,
But
whoa,
wasn't it
okay,
like
calm
an
down,
eighth
guys.
grade sort of like, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then you want to read
Yeah.
like a Dostoevsky book in a week or something?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe it was a little aggressive and maybe but I think the classics are the classics for a reason, there's no harm. I How long has it been since I haven't read 1984 since high school? It's probably a good thing to reread since everyone is
Loves to
referencing it
quote it. Yeah.
constantly. Yeah, so I don't know. It was more just the like very I saw a good thread about that phenomenon of people kind of dunking on someone just trying to do a good thing and raising their own profile by doing this. There are a lot of perverse incentives on the internet that I think you have to be pretty self-aware, and even then I don't know that you can work against them. They're
Yeah.
still
Well, I think like with Lex Friedman, he's sort of like a holdover from like a different era. Like he's very sort of like Neil deGrasse Tyson, kind of like when Reddit was cooler. He's kind of dated in this way that I think makes people uncomfortable, especially people who are kind of like always on the cutting edge of stuff. However, I also think like Twitter loves to punish sincerity. They do not like an earnest person.
Mhm.
If you are earnest, you are so screwed. Especially the type of like culture commenters who are, as much as Lex Friedman is annoying, right? Like him being like
I don't know
sincere.
him.
I don't know, and at this rate, I never will. Going on
He
podcasting being
seems so sincere and genuine, like, he seems like such a sweet person to me.
Yeah, I mean, he probably is, right? But he's like, I think, the type of people who would dunk on him are just always going to dunk on that sort of like TED Talk style, kind of like earnest, I love science kind of
Yeah.
dude, right? But but I think any sincerity at all is like completely just dragged through the mud.
Yeah, especially with the Adderall addiction.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Adderall addicts are not very they don't
Well, they're
want your
irritable,
sincerity. Yeah,
right? They're
very
they're aggro, They
short.
didn't they don't realize they haven't eaten in 14 hours.
Yeah. I started feeling this vibe when I was at Coachella one year, and I kept calling it Agrochella, and it was really the dawn of, like, the Adderall addicts coming up. It was probably 2000. It was, like, the late aughts, and I definitely started seeing just everyone was so aggro, and I think it's the weed now too is so aggressively cultivated, and
And who
they
can
pump
forget
it
all
up
the
with
coke?
so much. Huh?
And who can all the coke that people are
All the coke. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the coke that people are doing. Although, that seems like a that I'm not sure. I'm so out of the drug loop. I'm not sure what the cocaine scene is like now that it's, like, so contaminated with fentanyl.
Yeah. I mean, it seems kind of scary to do random coke at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it is. If you're not scared of it, you should be. Yeah, I would definitely be dead if I hadn't got sober, like, 9 years ago. I don't have any doubt about that. I would have probably yeah, I wasn't, like, testing my drugs, but now I know people who have, they just bring their little drug testing kit with them everywhere.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like I'm gonna keep doing it, but I'll be safe. I'll be responsible. I'll test it.
And then people are like, they're just looking for fentanyl. They know they're gonna OD. They have their little Narcan with them, and they all do it together and Narcan each other or whatever, and they're not even trying to avoid it. They're just like, "Yeah, let's get the fentanyl and
That's
die."
dark.
Yeah.
That's dark.
This is
Yeah,
this is the real world culture that I'm learning about, not the
uh,
online culture.
it's actually been a while since I've even seen drugs. I mean, I've seen Adderall, but I haven't seen. I don't. I don't think I socialize enough to actually see drugs in the wild. It's been a really long time.
It's funny that you were like, "That's dark," because some of the stuff that the internet rabbit holes that you've gone down are some of the darker ones. What's the darkest group that you've had to report on?
Um,
Or
I
not
think
had to, I guess, chosen to?
there's like corners of antinatalism that are pretty
Hmm.
disturbing. Um,
Is that
like
like everyone should just kill themselves and save the earth?
I mean, there's people who are like explicitly against living, right?
Okay.
So those, I mean, it's more than just not don't have children. It gets to a point where people think all sentient life is like a form of oppression, and that's disturbing to me. Um, there was a weird period there where like uh minor attracted persons, right? Pedophiles,
Mhm.
right? But I use that term only because that's the term they use within the internet subculture. Who were themselves quite young were reaching out to me, and I was like, I'm not giving you guys a chance. Like, no compassionate sort of let's see what they're up to from me. Like, absolutely, I draw
Mhm.
a hard line. I do not want to talk to pedophiles. Um, I think, but what's always disturbed me the most is sort of like anytime I've seen like isolation or alienation sort of like up close. Even if they're not into something that's like particularly strange, right? Or like, or something that I'm desensitized to, like really seeing someone's loneliness like up close is always kind of disturbing. Because there's no
Yeah.
way to, people put so many walls up and they go so deep down the rabbit hole that like, you can't like there's no sort of reaching out and like developing friendships with people. Like at some point it's just like they're too far gone. They're really broken.
Yeah.
And so like subculturally I've seen a lot of weird stuff, but I've also like talked to a lot of people where it's like you like really need help in a way that you're like the world can't offer you what you need.
I've interviewed a lot of people who've been canceled, and that's always the darkest, most upsetting interviews that I do that stick with me, and I think about for days after I talk to them, because once I talk to them, I can see how rattled and confused they are in a way that feels really dark and upsetting and isolated. They're usually just like they've been socially ostracized and put
Yeah.
in this kind of weird solitary confinement, but still out in the world. But it's almost even worse because of the freedom that they have to clearly just like wander around, but they feel very much like an island. And it's those are always those are always very upsetting interviews because I don't think cancel culture has become this thing that people throw around, and it's become a joke. It doesn't exist. It does exist. But the individual, when you actually talk to individuals who have experienced that when in one way or another, it's fucked up, man. It
Right. Because
is.
you really lose everything, right?
Yeah. Yep. And you lose not just often your actual income, any kind of psychic income. You lose friends and family. You lose the ability to crawl back from it is almost there's not very much redemption in the story because there's not much allowing for it right now. It's very, I don't know. I think when I had Greg Lukianoff on the podcast, he said something that cancel culture isn't just real, it's something that's going to be studied someday. And that always sticks
I
with me.
yeah. I mean I totally agree. This period is so branded too in a way, right? Like we have names for everything. I don't know. It's definitely like a very distinct era that I think we're kind of exiting. But that's why I never understand people who are like, oh, like, like the last sort of discrete era with like recognizable trends and even aesthetics were the 90s. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
2002, 2012, and 2022 are three very different years across every
Yeah.
axis. But yeah, cancel culture is, I've been thinking a lot about it too. And I actually, speaking of dark, I had the thought, and I was like, man, if I was ever canceled, like, frankly, would just kill myself. Like, I would feel like there's no
Oh,
other option. I mean, because I just like I really just thought about, I'm like, what would it actually look like and feel like? And I'm like, I don't like, I commend anyone who just gets through it. It just seems like the hardest thing.
yeah. You have to get through it. I mean, it's like my t-shirt says, just keep going. But there's a period where there's nowhere to go. There's nothing,
Right.
just seems, I don't know, there's something really dark about it, and the ease with which people just do it and
Yeah.
dismiss it. It just seems callous. There's just a very callous, heartless undercurrent to the whole conversation around it that I find very unsettling.
Well, I think it's also because, you can build an audience around it or get a lot of attention. But I think that
Mhm.
sort of is revealing that, people who are watching on and then criticizing that, like, don't realize, like, well, these people lost like real relationships, and like an audience or like an invitation to go on, for example, Tucker Carlson is not the same as like my mother still looks me in the eyes and speaks to me. Like, people like
Yeah.
really like, it's, so what? Like, so you earn like tens of thousands of dollars, like capitalizing on the biggest humiliation of your life. You still lost your best friend, right? Like, you're not getting that back.
You're not hearing about the little ones either. Those
Yeah.
are I feel like those are the people that, if you can manage to monetize being canceled, by all means, go for it. I think some people now try intentionally to get canceled because it will draw attention to their work or art or profile, and you can use it to kick that can, as we were joking about, and collect that victim money. But there is the littler guys who don't really have that escape velocity, or they just haven't made it big enough to escape, that are the ones that you're kind of only hearing about in this instance, the planes that land. You're not hearing about all the little ones,
Right.
and there's a lot. That was one of the things that I realized years ago, and I was trying to write this piece about self-censorship back in like 2018. And just see me even tweeting that got so much hatred from journalists. They were like, "Oh, another right wing, another girl who left the left and is writing a piece." But the stories that I got were, my cousin made me stop reading them because they were so dark, and it was just little, I call them like micro cancellations. And it was just like the mom from the mommy group, or the guy from his family, or they're these little social rifts that are happening kind of everywhere in a way that I don't know, other than maybe like the Civil War, because I don't know. I loved, you said something, that there's so many things that you wrote that I resonated with, and I'm going to read them. But I don't know when it's been like that, when people have been so quick to just cut people out of their life for not even something they did to them directly.
Yeah, it's really, it's strange, like, how disposable relationships are.
Yeah. Do you think that's a product of the internet, of people being online
I
and
it,
being atomized and moving away and not having that?
Partially, yeah. I think the internet really does, in some way, like, trivialize relation. It makes it easier to cut people off, especially because you can do it. There's somehow like a receipt of it, like blocking someone, deleting their phone number, deleting their contact. Whereas before, like, you didn't have that like ritual attached to it.
Mm,
Yeah, the volume of like rejection we experience even without cancellation is so much higher than, like, I'm sure people are being rejected all the time before social
right.
media, but like that, you somehow have like proof, proof that it happened has to have some kind of psychological impact that we don't think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that as someone who's tried doing stand up and all those things, writing, trying to get paid as a writer, I have a higher tolerance for rejection. It's built into what I've been trying to do for decades. But uh, if you're not in an industry, or you don't have that kind of expectation, I don't, rejection. And even me, who has a high tolerance for it, read something that someone wrote that was like slightly mean, and I was like, I don't have the skin for this. I'm not built for this. I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I neither am I, right? And I'm like a fiend. I'll constantly like name search and stuff. I've
Oh,
like,
I don't do that.
oh my, well, it's because I'm in a weird level of fame where it's like I'm well known enough for there to be some stuff, but not so well known that it's more than like 4 a day, you know? So it's like manageable to sort of like look through. I shouldn't be doing it at all is the point, but
I
like
cannot do that. 'Cause I think we're in the same place. So this is what you wrote, where I was like, this is like my cooler little sister. It's like you are if I had a cool little sister. I have many little sisters and they're cool, but like a cool internet little sister. You wrote, as it stands, there are definitely certain things that or I guess maybe you said this in an interview, but it was something I read. As it stands, there are definitely certain things that I've done, people whom I've interviewed, places that I've published, that have prevented me from taking jobs at certain companies or even being friends with certain people, if you can believe it. I often think, if it's this bad for me, then I can't imagine what it's like for people who've gone further. And this cuts across many different directions too. I'm in this odd space of neither being extreme enough or nor inoffensive enough. People don't know what to make of me. This is something I read that and I was like, this could be my bio. Like, I really identify with that, where I'm not really offensive, but I'm offensive enough, but I'm
right.
not. Yeah, it's like and I've interviewed people like that alienates me from other circles that might have me in more of the mainstream circles, where they're just like, oh, even Ben Shapiro, who's pretty mainstream, I think. But just even having sat down and talked to him is enough for me to probably never get a job in like a writer's room on a show here. It's a weird place to be. And then you said, I'm not right wing enough for many right wingers. I'm not a leftist and never will be. Centrist has weird baggage, but also doesn't feel entirely true. I totally get that. Either, even though I've used it because it feels safe, also. I have even identified as shit lib or neo lib just to get people off my back, as if to say, yeah, my beliefs are mainstream and garbage, move it along. Is that true? I don't know. I get that though, too. I mean, I just started saying I was politically homeless because
Yeah,
centrist feels
it feels
like I get
wrong.
accused of being a centrist, but
Right.
it's not like I see the center of everything. I'm just taking things kind of case by case.
I mean, here's
But
the other with me, it's like people don't like apolitical either, but I don't know anything about politics. Like, and
yeah,
I mean, God love the people who just lie and pick a lane, but like, I can't do that. I'm not gonna, just say whatever because it give me social approval or something. I'm too
I
dumb.
I'm too dumb too. This is what
I
I
have no idea.
said. I'm like, I don't know anything about anything. When you actually talk to people who have been in this sphere, like pundits and even people who, whatever you might think about them, I've had like Nick Gillespie on, and he has been doing this for so long and has this wealth of information and knows what every administration stood for and or you talk to somebody who knows about the geopolitical history of the relationship between the United States and the Ukraine and Russia and knows I'm like, I don't know. You said this somewhere too, where you're like, I don't know enough about politics or history. Exactly.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
but that's
I
the
don't know enough.
expectation, right? Because it's like that's the main like subcultural divide, right? Like you're in the right wing umbrella or the left wing umbrella. And of course I'm under the right wing umbrella because it's like, well, I'm not, I whatever like I use he him pronouns for Christians, so suddenly I'm a right wing. It's like these weird things that get you shoved to the other side.
Yeah, I mean that my husband always jokes when Mitch McConnell was the like speaker. he was like, whether you like it or not, you're Team Mitch because they won't have you. You know, he's like,
Right.
so whether you wanted to be on the left or think of yourself as more left wing in some respects, they won't even have you because it is this divide, and there is this purity test that you have to pass that I won't pass that test. Unfortunately, I've already failed it many times. And then there's the, it would have been very easy for me to, like, in the same way that it would have been easy for me to lean into being like a left-wing late night show writer. I could have easily written those jokes and leaned into that, but I couldn't. It just wasn't honest. And I could have done that on the right wing too. I could have, like, fully leaned into that momentum, and
Oh, I think about
instead
that all the time.
I chose to become irrelevant.
When I published that coming wave piece, I mean, first of all, when I talk about like Adderall fueled nonsense, I mean, like, read that post, right? Like, clearly something was up, but like, everyone started knocking on my door, like, do you want to be the sex negativity chick? And I'm like, I'm divorced, no children, like, no way. Like, I could have, right? I could have gone on my little tour and been like,
Yeah.
keep your legs shut, ladies. But like, who am I? Like, but it could have been so easy. And I think maybe I'm glad I did it, because the fall off that pedestal would have really hurt. But like, and when you're in this industry, you're given all these opportunities to like pick a lane and lie basically, and sell your wares. But I was like, I can't do that one.
Although I do see people who manage to successfully pivot out of the mainstream left and create empires, like Glenn Greenwald and Barry. I think Barry Weiss are good examples
But they're
of
still doing
people.
culture war stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
what beats they're going to hit and what stories they're going to write about. They're the alt centrist or something.
right. Yeah, I mean, that's like that was the other thing that I was joking about when I had my daughter. I'm like, I've got to pivot out of the culture war somehow, because that's not something I want to do forever. And even if I have to fight the culture wars I think having a kid has made me realize you can't sit them out because they'll
Yeah.
come to you, which maybe I have a few more years to avoid that, but there are going to be. Even just today, I was talking to one of my friends and they're like, my kid has a substitute. And they're like a crazy person the kids are coming home and they're like telling them all these stories about Trump and conservatives and how they're all horrible. And, just all this politics that they're bringing into the classroom, and the kids are going home and telling their parents, and their parents are like, why are these people insane? And so you have to have these awkward conversations with principals, and you can't really set it out. Yeah, when the kid comes home with like the gender bread person or whatever it is, whatever that thing is. And so I think there's an argument to be made, and my friend has made it, that you can't, because I was like, everything's so politicized, it's so annoying, I just don't. But I also think it was kind of a trend, and I'm hoping I think you wrote this on your predictions, and I'm hoping and
Yeah, I
praying
think
to
that
God.
car is running out of gas. I mean, at least in
I
terms of
pray you're
like for
right.
myself.
You were talking about what's in and what's out, and we can talk about some of the out things I thought were really. The first one is a discourse hot take economy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think these things ever really go away, obviously,
Right.
but I think there is a period of time there where you could use it as jet fuel, basically, to launch a career. I don't think that's going to be as easy. Part of that is Twitter maybe declining in influence. You know, requisite love you, Elon. Don't throttle me if I come back.
Oh man. I've been calling him my nemesis on my show Dumpster Fire for like years as a joke, and now I feel like I was like,
Does
I
he
probably
know?
picked the right. Probably. I was joking about it on Rogan, they're friends. Like,
the
might not
Elon
know.
Panopticon.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, I probably
But
should have
yeah,
picked a less
I mean,
influential nemesis.
I feel like Sorry, I got distracted there by the shades.
That's okay.
The I feel like it's definitely like not going to be a way to climb up that career ladder anymore. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think people are starting to care about different things. um, I see a lot more content about like personal life again, not necessarily oversharing, but like sort of sincere advice. Trend analysis is another one. Looking back at historical trends. um, Micro trend is a word that I started hearing a lot and started going through like everyone says we live in a fragmented world where there's all these different little subcultures. Who knows if that's true, but there's a lot of content analyzing what these little trends, little cultures, little fashion movements are. So I mean, just stuff that's a little bit less charged but still interesting.
Yeah. Another thing you said is that contrarian reactionary will be to 2023 what the Chapo Trap House Marxist was to 2020, 2022. Not controversial, just lame. Arguably, we're already here.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I feel you remember like when being a Marxist was kind of like edgy, and now it's not really anymore.
Yeah, I
For a
vaguely
certain
remember.
set, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot of those people, that again, like it just ran out of gas. A lot of those people are like fascists, right? You know, of course they aren't. Like they're adopting sort of these reactionary poses. And I just don't think that's going to be. It's just not. It just kind of lost its edge really quick. And I think those people continue being produced, but it's not. It's doesn't it lacks the novelty now. It's not. It doesn't seem as like interesting.
Yeah. I feel like who are those girls who Red Scare? Um are they like having their moment in the mainstream, or is it
I
something
mean,
where do they what space do they occupy?
it's anybody's guess where they fall in the trend cycle, but I mean, maybe it seems like they're trying to pivot to a more right wing, explicitly right wing audience. Honestly, if I had to peg it, I don't even think they're trying to do like a Fox News kind of pivot. I think they're kind of trying to, like Bronze Age Pervert is very popular among the dissident right. And he has a lot of influence outside of that, but he's still very niche. And I feel like they are sort
Mm,
of trying to make a pivot into like dissident right specific celebs. Because I mean, look at the people they're having on their show, like Nicola Soldo, who started the Sallow Forum, which is where you get all these dissident right e-celebs. Anna Khachiyan dressed up as Thomas 777, who is a self-avowed national socialist for Halloween. It seemed like they're trying to cement themselves as part of that, the dissident right.
okay, yeah. Interesting. I don't listen to anything. um so I'm aware of a lot of these things, but I don't really consume it, and I never really know where a lot of the people fall in the on the spectrum, the political spectrum, because it seems like uh, I think there is some truth in our mutual friend Anna was kind of like the grift is just taking over everything. So everything is mashing together.
If there's one
And
thing I do, it's like pedantically, like say, oh, this is this, subculture. This is this subculture. This is where they converge.
yeah, I just don't know enough about that stuff, which is why it's so fascinating to hear someone like you you're like a sociologist out there exploring the dark corners of the internet.
I'm like
Um,
Michael Rockefeller, and I'm gonna get eaten alive.
what are n logs, or how do you say that?
Oh, not like other girls. Pick me's.
Oh, mm.
Nice callback.
So they're out.
I
I
think
didn't know they
so.
were in. I feel like they
I,
wanted to be in.
I think there was like a moment. They had a moment, and now the moment's ending. They come in and out. It feels like.
What's an e-girl
And
specifically?
so in that piece, I'm talking about like mostly a specific like makeup style, where it's
Mhm.
like too much highlighter on the nose. It sort of evokes like anime girls. Um, they're bigger on like Twitch. But I
Okay.
think I think that this sort of style is getting like played out. And again, it's these things ebb and flow, right? It's like the 2020s. late 2010s version of like like the Tumblr girl, right?
Okay.
It's like we're done with the highlighter on the nose.
Somebody was saying, I posted the video on Twitter. I was like down a Madonna rabbit hole, and I posted her video from Hung Up, which was from 2006 or 7. And somebody said, he's like, what's the difference in that between that and now in 2023? You know, he's like, the culture hasn't, Madonna's aged, but it feels like the culture hasn't changed at all. But you would argue that it has quite
I mean,
a lot.
like just watch an episode of TV from like 2006, 2007. It's really interesting. You watch like archival footage of like people on the street in, let's say, like the 70s. There's people wearing clothes from the 60s in a video from 1977. It's because not everyone is on the cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be more obvious in like big movies and stuff. But another part of this is there's a lot of like user generated content, right? But if you actually look at a movie, it's going to be clearly different.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Be sure to check out my weekly podcast, You're Welcome with Michael Malice, now on Podcast One. You might know me from my terrible Twitter, my horrible books, or the nonsense I spout on podcasts like Rogan and Glenn Beck. It's all there. Are you black-pilled or white-pilled for the future of the UK? What is a man?
What is a man?
What is a no? What is the? Are you white pilled or black pilled? No seriousness, Carl.
No. I love the Jesse piece of question.
The fact that you discovered that gives me hope for some of the things that I've still got that are missing.
Well, if you need James G. Blaine's autograph, you are welcome to it. Of course, being the co-author of How to Have Impossible Conversations makes you the perfect guest for this train wreck of a show. New episodes are available every Thursday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, and wherever you get your podcasts. You are welcome.
Walk-ins Welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey, Walk-ins Welcome listeners, whether you love true crime or comedies, celebrity interviews, news, or even motivational speakers, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue, right? And guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now that's something you'll want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to choose the best option for you fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. We were joking about, like, is anything cool anymore? Nothing is cool anymore. And when I was a kid, I always wanted to be cool. And I also wanted to be on the cutting edge. So I was always, music was the way that I did that. I was always in the like weird scenes and I wanted to be the first person who knew about a band before anybody else. And I don't know that that's really changed that much, but do you find that you get something like self-value or self-worth out of being on this like razor's edge like you are?
I don't know if I am on the razors. I don't know if I am. I don't think anyone would describe me as cool. Although, who among us doesn't? I think you're cool. Thank you. Who doesn't long to be cool? Because cool is being validated, right? Like you're doing something right.
But is anything cool anymore? We were having this conversation, like what? Nothing's cool anymore.
I think things are trendy, right? There's always going to be trends. There's always going to be things that people gravitate towards.
I feel like there's almost an aversion to coolness itself. That's at least what I see with my younger, like the thing that's cool is being unimpressed by coolness.
That might be true.
At least I see that with my younger nephew and his kind of little cohort of friends. They're very, very, I don't know. They have such an ability to see through anyone who's trying to be cool at all. But that's everyone.
But hasn't that always been the case, right? Like the person who's trying the hardest is the person who's failing the hardest, especially at being cool, right?
Yeah. They're like the OG lol cows. They're trying so hard. Yeah, the list, I think everyone should check it out. Like the one that jumped out to me too, one of the many, Miami is out. Marijuana is out. The mommy bloggers who show their kids in their content, that was something before I even had a kid that I found appalling and really made me so uncomfortable. But I do feel like you're right. It's kind of that feeling is going a little bit more mainstream. I hope for the sake of these children that they're putting to work.
Yeah, I mean, there's also been all of these like scandals and, like, even like in-app sort of gossip and fear about like child porn, frankly.
Yeah.
And, so you don't want people saving videos of your kids,
No.
even if videos are above board, right? There's like this new awareness. It's like, oh, why is this like, essentially like 45-year-old man only liking pictures of toddlers?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just so, again, deeply like suspicious by nature. And the internet has always unsettled me a little bit. And so I would see these like on Instagram, you see it the most is just these people using their kids as like they're all making these videos and it's the whole family is in on it. And it just always feels so, I don't know. They have to live with that stuff that's out there forever. They don't really have a choice in the matter. And I feel like that seems slightly unfair to them. I sometimes feel bad even talking about my daughter. Just even I try to be aware of like how much I share about, her, but it's still hard because being a mom is like, your experience of being a mom includes the child, obviously. So when you're dealing with something, it's hard not to include them. But I'm still a little bit finding that balance. Being a writer has been challenging. But yeah, I hope it goes out that the mommy bloggers stop showing their kids. Please stop.
I've noticed, a couple of people, at least I follow on TikTok, have sort of stopped. Like, there's still mommy, bloggers, I guess, mommy talkers, right? But they, you don't see their kid as much. Their Instagram and putting a sticker over the face. So, I mean, maybe. I think it would, especially, there's, I think more than one generation of these kids are now teenagers, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably, we're due for
a reckoning.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like a memoir yet. Like my mom posted me all over.
Any minute now.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one in the making.
There has
I always thought that about the Parkland kids. I was like, these kids I feel like are going to have memoirs in their 20s where it's like, I was used by the media and my, by activists and paraded in front of the whole world as a teenager. People are like, they have agency. I'm like,
that was there is something that didn't feel kosher about that.
I got a lot of shit for saying that they're like, wait until you have a 17-year-old. And I'm like, I know how precocious I was when I was 17 and how aggressive I was about wanting to do things. But still, if I wanted to join a rock band and I was freaking 17, I still wouldn't have been allowed to do it. Someone has to like sign those waivers when you're underage. Right. You don't just like get to do those things. But
yeah,
what do I know? Maybe I'll be letting my daughter be some crazy activist when she's 16 and I'll be like, go follow your bliss. Go be the poster child for one of the most divisive and dangerous divides in our country. Good luck.
that, is like deeply tied to something that traumatized you and you probably lost a lot of friends in, which is like another, like, people died also. It's like, it's not even
Yeah.
just like Greta Thunberg who's out there about climate change where it's sort of abstract. It's like
Yeah.
they may have saw people die in front of them, and
Yeah.
now it's like a wound that is constantly open.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That seems like a rabbit hole that you had to go down a bit. Was like the you did a piece on the kind of cults around these school shooters.
Yeah, it's always sort of been on my radar. It's so interesting to me, like these fandoms around
So
school
weird.
shooters. Yeah, because
And
some
the
of
like
it's
Boston bomber too. He had like a huge
oh yeah, I remember that super well.
yeah.
Um,
You're like
yeah,
I remember the posters.
I remember, yeah, when he was on Rolling Stone.
He was on
And
the cover of Rolling Stone. Yeah. That was weird. That was
it was, it
really
was really
that felt like a psyop.
it was really strange. But yeah, because it's strange is like it seems like there's two groups broadly, right? Like there's a people who are sort of irreverent about it, and it's like the same kind of people who, like love the Joker and they see themselves as Harley Quinn or whatever. But then there's like another type where it's like they're in so much pain that they feel like their pain is best expressed by this person who's like totally let down by the world and like, lashed out in this very specific way. It's like always very sad to see.
I mean, I applaud you for even going down that rabbit hole. That moment in America was so dark for me. I left the country. I couldn't even look at it. I just was like, this is the darkest. And then Uvalde happened when I was like freaking 3 weeks postpartum, and I was like, I can't. You have to shield me from this because I can't even go there.
Yeah, that one was that was really sad.
Yeah, they're all just like it seems, is this something that is uniquely American? Do you in your experience of being online, or do you see it?
Well, what's interesting is like it's sort of right. Like this expression of it is obviously very American. But I read this book on hikikomori, which are like, these Japanese people, both men and women, who hide away from the world. They become extremely isolated. They don't really interact with other people. They may become obsessed with something like, like anime. And it's this like self-imposed isolation has been a huge
Mm,
problem in Japan for decades. And they get evoked periodically, especially when we talk about incels. What you never really hear about is one of the things that characterizes a hikikomori in Japan is acts of rage, and they're very
mm,
violent. And I always thought that was like really interesting. And they have a Japanese expression of that violence, but is that not kind of the same, right? Like they're not shooting up an elementary school because they can't, but they are like
yeah, that just
stabbing
seems
their whole family.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the like expression of that rage against children is what's like I cannot conceive of how broken you have to be in your brain to do that. There's
I think you need to
something
detach, right?
or
I think the internet
detached.
I think the internet does this to everyone. And like the benign example I give, right? This is totally different, but like, you often hear these stories of like husbands who, are like Snapchatting rando women or whatever, right? Or they having these like cyber affairs. And this has been going on since the dawn of the internet. And when these people are called on it or they're even interviewed about it by like psychologists, they're like, I feel like that was a different person, right?
Mm,
They almost don't even realize what they're doing, and I totally believe that. This doesn't mean that you wash your hands of accountability, but I think the internet sort of exacerbates that sort of compartmentalization. And
mhm.
in its darkest sort of moments, right, like our society allows people to, on one hand like Snapchat your dick to some rando, on the other commit a mass shooting. And it seems like a very strange, maybe even offensive comparison to make. But I do think that like we're all sort of going through this like detachment that we really don't know how to reckon with.
Mm. Yeah, but I mean, how detached? I don't know. That's like a level of detachment that is
Like if you're
sociopathic.
right, if you're already like evil or you've experienced certain trauma. Like, there's so many different, like for an ordinary person, it's like, I don't know what happened. I just like binge ate. I was in a fugue state or something, right? And it's like, it's binge eating, binge drinking, having an affair. Like there's all these like little things that are like, they're bad, but they're not killing a bunch of people. If you're already like rotten somehow, or you've experienced extreme trauma, or you do have this rage.
So unsettling. It's a very strange time in our. I'm like so fascinated by it all, though. I'm so fascinated by what you do, and I appreciate your perspective so much. I just think you really are this little like oracle online. We're going to see the oracle today to hear what she has. I'm just gonna have you on regularly to talk about the trends that you're noticing. You'll just be a regular fixture, unless you're trying to detach and detach from the internet.
I mean, who knows? Who knows what'll happen? I say this, I'm off Twitter, but now I'm on TikTok even more than like somehow I've increased my TikTok usage from 10 hours to 20 hours. I'm exaggerating, but
what's the weirdest thing you've noticed on TikTok lately?
Okay, recently, and I don't know why I started getting service. So many guys at Fort Hood like live stream their whole days on TikTok, which is not allowed. And then they try to recruit. So I feel like I'm spending my whole day at Fort Hood with these, and I'm starting to take screenshots because I'm like, I know, I know people are going to think I'm exaggerating. So allow me to
this is
show
crazy. I didn't even think you were allowed to have TikTok on your phone if you work for the government.
Wait, you literally aren't. And this has already a problem.
And they're they're streaming their days at the base.
Yeah,
this is
at
nuts.
work in their. I know what the offices look like. I mean, there's just so much of this, and I.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the army wouldn't be stoked about this.
They're not. They know it happens, and they don't.
What's the point of them doing this?
I have no idea.
And they're recruiting?
Soldiers. Some of them are recruiting, getting ready. So most of them, I started getting them. I'm like, so most of them are actually at Fort Hood, but they're all branches of the military, all over the country, right? And none of them have that many videos, but they all have a lot of. So to live stream on TikTok, you need like a certain amount of followers, and you need 1,000 followers. So they have at least, I think it's at least 1,000 followers and no videos. And, they all of them like don't, they're not really strong personalities on the app. So how do they get all these followers? I mean, I have so many questions, and they all say like my opinions don't reflect the Department of Defense. I mean, it's just, and there's so many, and I wonder if it's actually like they're not allowed, but like for some reason, some soldiers are told that they need to.
Like why
because there's a recruiting crisis, right? Oh, and I keep getting, I'll always go into live streams and I'm like, let's talk about the recruiting crisis, and I'll drop an article or something, and I get blocked immediately. They're like, what recruiting crisis? But yeah, all branches of the military, but like lots and lots of army, like so much army stuff.
I mean, I would think too, it would be in China's benefit to let all these soldiers live stream the like bases and whatnot.
I mean, so many just sitting in their cars outside of, just like waiting for their shift to start or whatever. I mean, it's like, it's nuts. There's so many of them, but I have to start saving them because I know if I just say it, they'll be like, oh, you saw like 2? No, I've seen like dozens.
Wow. That's crazy. This is why I'm not on TikTok though. We looked at it one night. I was like, let's see this TikTok thing. And just like this, even like the scrolling apparatus. And now it's just, I understand why it turns your brain to pudding.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy. And then I was going down this rabbit hole, and like in China, they have such different content, and it's, they're uplifting like the STEM. They're like, let's do math videos and videos that show how great it is to become. And here it's just like all of our STEM women are becoming influencers on TikTok and making these ridiculous videos.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I wouldn't blame the app for that, but it definitely reinforces already, negative things in our culture.
Yeah. I mean, what a wild, wild time. I look at my daughter and I'm like, what is it going to be like for you? What is it going to be like for her? She's
I
so
mean,
little.
maybe maybe the counterculture will be Luddites,
That's what I'm hoping.
and she
I'm
won't be
hoping
on.
that,
I mean,
yeah,
look, that already kind of started with our generation, right? Like,
yeah,
hipsters were very into analog. That was the
yeah,
beginning of the beginning.
yeah. I'm hoping that she's into homesteading.
If people can still own, like, if we want to get really conspiratorial.
Oh, I know. I can't. No, we can't go there today. I can only take so much. So, what is I will end this podcast. I'm definitely want to have you back on. Thank you for coming.
Thanks
I'll
for
ask
inviting me.
the I'll ask the last two questions I always ask my guests. What's your biggest defect of character?
What, really? Defect of character? Did I hear that
I
correctly?
like to surprise people.
Um, I okay. So I'm definitely too communicative. Like, once you start a text convo with me, I just won't shut up, and you will never get rid of me. And it's actually huge. And I do not stop talking at all.
I love that. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I mean, it could be, right?
I guess. Yeah. What's your biggest asset?
Um, that I don't stop talking. So never an awkward. Well, sometimes an awkward silence.
Where can we find you online nowadays?
So I might come back to Twitter because I'm always activating and deactivating. So if I'm back on by the time this is out, default_friend. If I'm not, defaultfriend.substack.com. And then if you want to see my very, very pathetic TikTok, it's AULKURITSA.
And do you, I guess, is Discord something that's open or is it not?
It is. I have a Discord server. But yeah, just, whoever wants to be in my Discord server, just shoot me an email and I will send you a link.
Okay. I don't fully understand Discord because I'm a boomer, but it seems
It's
like
like
fun.
Slack,
Okay.
but like different skin.
But do you live stream? Is it video or is it all just
No, you can video. It's like a chat room, basically. It's like everyone gets their own little chat room. Yeah.
Yes. I'm a boomer. Well, thank you for schooling me on all of the things. And I really encourage everybody to follow you and read all of your reporting and writing. It's all so great. There's so much. It's just, I love kind of meandering around your mind, not to sound creepy.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. It's time for the weekly check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie. And we're recording.
And we have nothing to talk about. We've finally talked ourselves out.
We're completely out of original ideas, folks. This is the end.
It's time to just close up shop.
The end of Phetasy. It
Shuttered.
happens today. It's because we're so in working mode. We're not doing anything.
I know.
This is a problem. This should be a sign in our check-ins that we need to go live some life.
It's true. Because I feel like all I've been doing for just days and days and days on end from morning to night, far into the night, is just like work.
Because we are small business owners.
It's true.
And we're in that year.
That growth year.
At year 3, is it? Are we in year 3 or 4? What year is it?
It's 2023.
This will be our 4th year.
Yeah. But
like
this is
third
like
and a half.
our third real year, I would say.
Yeah. We could this could be the end for us.
It's our second year of me being on full time.
Right. Yeah.
I've been on for 1 year.
These are hard years as business owners.
Dig deep.
Some a-hole online. You always know it's going to be a good check-in when I start that way. was kind of bad faith asking me what I did. What do I do? I didn't respond. Because she seems to think of herself as someone who's making movies and publishing papers and all this stuff. And it's like, and I want to know, what do you do? I'm serious. This is just an honest question. It's like,
what a douche.
This is a bad faith question.
Yeah.
And you have some weird issue with me.
Well, I produce 2 podcasts and a show.
3 podcasts. Oh,
Well,
2. Yeah, I guess 2 podcasts and a show.
I don't consider Dumpster Fire a podcast. I don't know
never
what
will.
entails in a podcast, but I don't consider that a podcast.
No, that's not
It's
a
a
podcast.
show.
Because it takes as much work as a show.
Yeah, it's got all these.
It's a show that
graphics
we
and
turn
images
into a
and-
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was just a podcast,
Plus,
I would sit in here and sit and read the script.
Plus, you're a writer. You also make your living as a writer.
I know. I don't know what to tell people when they approach me like that. I genuinely don't think people understand how much work goes into all of these things either. The just back end work, even just doing my writing prompts. I'm like, this won't be that bad. But then, yes, I should only be writing for 5 minutes, but I'm incapable of it once I start. And I don't want to do something half-assed.
Yeah.
And then I have to post it on 2 places.
Yep.
And once I'm posting it, I'm editing. It's like everything takes longer. And I love doing the writing prompts.
Yeah.
Even though now I have a deadline every night, and of course I do literally
Right before
last night
Matilda.
we were watching like some stupid beef video in the conservative party because there's another beef between women. And Jaron's like, oh, so you did your writing prompt when we were done watching it? I was like, no. He's like, we just spent an hour watching this stupid shit and you haven't even done your writing prompt. I was like, yes, you should have known when I turned it on that's exactly what was happening.
What do you even do here, Bridget?
What do you even do other than cause problems?
Other than provoke people on Twitter.
I mean, I can see why someone might think that's all I do. That was when that woman was asking me that question. I was reminding Elon Musk that I am the person who came up with the definition of the word he keeps alluding to.
Yes, that's right. And many of the fan members were in there too, posting about like, oh, this Bridget Phetasy coined this. This is what it means.
He must fucking hate me. Also, haven't moved on Twitter either.
Shocking.
I probably shouldn't have made my nemesis the owner of Twitter.com.
And we're back to not really moving on YouTube either.
Someone the other day was like, you literally, like, every algorithm hates you guys.
Hates us.
It's like, it's such a fantasy. I can't even be mad about it because it's so like this stupid trickster-esque company that I imbued with my own essence of trickster.
You really did.
And it's like,
it's determined to remain invisible too. Like just determined.
it really is. I seriously go on Twitter now and I feel like that. Is anyone alive out there?
So those of you who have found us and are listening
It's
to
a
our
miracle.
rambling check-in, thank you for, tuning in and paying attention.
Maybe we just make this all up though to excuse the fact that no one likes our content. Some people do.
But the people who love the content love it. Like really, really passionally. I
But maybe
can't
there's
discount
a very
that.
small
Maybe
market.
it's just like 2,000 people out there who really love what we do. And that's it. That's our market threshold.
That would be amazing. I'm like, maybe that's it. Maggie's like, there are 300 million people in this country. I feel like we could find a few more. I'm like, I feel like that's it.
We've tapped out.
Tapped out.
It's our full market capacity. We only appeal to a very small subject.
I was
subsection
talking
of
to
people.
somebody last night about like what a disappointing creator I've been for a lot of these brands that have been like, oh, she's on the up and up, and then just nothing.
And then still people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of that girl, but who is that?
Did we ever tell the story of us in that little paddle boat?
I think we did, but we could always tell it again.
But that's what I was thinking of recently.
Oh, I think I have the video on here now
yes.
that we could play the little noise.
We have to play the noise.
So we went to this, my favorite place in the world, this cabin in the woods that we go to this summer, and we were on this little paddle boat, the two of us, with this. I mean, it's just this old creaky boat. And it made this very distinctive noise, and we were just paddling,
and it was kind of leaking.
Yeah, and like listing to one side, and we're just like
going nowhere,
cruising along. But
and everyone's in their little zippy sunfish
kayaks
sailboats
and canoes,
kayaks,
and we were just dying laughing, being like, "There is no better metaphor for Phetasy than this."
This is Phetasy. This is in a perfectly realistic moment.
All right, let me play the noise here. This is the sound of the creaking pedals.
That is the
sound that will haunt my dreams.
That is the sound of Phetasy. And like, I felt like we were going in circles. Are we going backwards?
Like, just like inching along very slowly. Just keep paddling.
I know. If it didn't hurt so much, it would be hilarious. Actually, it is hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Look, I still maintain I am passionately obsessed with our audience because they are
our people.
Our people.
Yeah.
They're hilarious. They're so funny in the comments. I'm passionately aware of the fact that I get to do whatever I want, and it's my own and ours, and we get to work together, and that we get to work on Phetasy right now. So all I care about is that I can maintain that. I don't need to make, a yacht for every pleb money. I'd like to, but I'm happy with where I am.
Yeah,
and
just being able to support ourselves doing this is truly
I'm so
a dream
grateful.
come true. Yeah.
But it is objectively hilarious
that we refuse to grow. Like, refuse. For the amount of content we put out every
Maybe
day.
we have pick me energy.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Tell us what you think, folks.
Don't tell us if we have pick me energy. I don't want to know that.
But tell us.
We have pick me energy.
I don't know. Maybe that's it. Our market is saturated. We have reached our max capacity.
I mean, Gen X is a very small generation.
Is it?
What's funny, it's not so funny. It's not so mysterious that the algorithm, neither really is, because the algorithm likes to know what things are, and I don't think it's it's like we have, you know what it is, and I was saying this on Twitter, we avoid the blob. We managed to. The blob is this concept that Thomas de Zengotita writes about in his book Mediated, which if you listen to this podcast, you've heard my interviews with him. And he talks about this kind of media process that consumes everything. But Phetasy is like a trickster who avoids the blob. But little did we know that means avoiding all of the algorithms as well.
But also, I mean, I when I go back through and do like the YouTube clips and I'm like cutting up dumpster fire, I'm like, well, I can see why YouTube doesn't like us.
No, we should probably be very grateful to just be there.
On YouTube.
Yes, we probably will end up only being on Rumble someday when we get booted off of YouTube.
Yeah.
For calling people fats. I guess you can't make jokes anymore.
No, we know that. We're living in the age of post-comedy.
How so last night, everybody's losing their mind about the Hamlin injury, and now they all think that he's a clone and that he has a body double. Lots of people on the internet, and I went down this rabbit hole because a friend told me about it. And the creepiest thing to me was not that people were making this assumption. It was that they were all using, why don't they just admit that he unalived or whatever? They were using unalived instead of saying died or killed. That the vaccines unalived this guy or whatever.
Right, because they know they'll get blocked if they say the vaccines killed him.
Yeah, but they were saying this even on Twitter.
Yeah. No, that does not surprise me.
It's so creepy. That is 1984. That's like crazy weird.
Yeah.
Another
then they're
alternate
gonna start
language.
banning Unalive, and then it'll be something else. Like it will evolve.
I feel like I've aged out of the culture.
I do too.
That's something I also have realized, particularly being in this insane chat that I'm in with all of my lady friends, and they're younger, and I think I'm very online, which to you I am. But to them, I'm like, hey, the boomers entered the chat. What the fuck are you guys talking about? I don't understand I'm not kidding. 90% of who they're talking about and what they're talking about. I have no idea what it is.
That's crazy.
This episode is such a good example of it with Katherine, because she is very online, and I'm like,
explain this to me.
yeah, I don't understand all of this lingo and the things that are happening in this world. Nobody knows about it. Even the stuff with like Crowder and Ben Shapiro. If you walked around and interviewed people, probably maybe 1 out of 1,000 people have heard of Crowder. Maybe. These aren't famous people. They're famous online and in certain circles, but to the average person,
like who?
Yeah, no. It's crazy though, because there's a whole parallel world that churns out all this content and talks about all this stuff, and like that's why I think we need to get into them. We need to start talking about like the Kardashians and like mommy blogger stuff. I know.
Mommy blogger stuff I can handle. The Kardashians, no thank you. But I do feel like it's like trust the process. There's a reason that we haven't blown
I would
up
never
yet,
try
and it would not
game
be
the algorithm, because it would just blow up
honestly.
in my face.
It's some sort of protection. It's some sort of Phetasy has some sort of protective force field that allows us to remain invisible. It's not our favorite thing sometimes, but I think it's also a true blessing in disguise.
No, it really is.
Yeah.
I've been watching some of the old dumpster fires just because I think what I'm going to do is binge watch them, because I've been popping in and out, but I'm like, I think I have to dedicate myself to binge watching this show. And my God,
the shit you have said.
Joe Rogan had his N-word montage, but I think ours is going to be much worse.
Yeah. Because it's a lot of different things.
I just want a montage of me being like, fats, olds, pores.
So many inappropriate things have been said on that
But this
show.
is how people joke.
And no, this is how people are in real life.
You know what it is, though? We are working class people who are making content in like not an environment that's filled with many working class people.
Right. It's true.
I'm like, this is how working class people joke.
This is how normal people talk.
Have you ever worked at a restaurant or on a job site?
Uh-huh.
Or literally anywhere where you're on your feet?
It's pretty tame for restaurant speak.
I know. I still love that comment where somebody was like mad at us on Dumpster Fire, and they said, if I wanted to feel like I was back at a waitressing station listening to the waitresses giggle and talk about drama or whatever, I would go back to work in a restaurant.
Well, you clearly just shouldn't be watching our show then.
I was like, we nailed it. If that's the vibe we give off, 3 waitresses talking shit. Nailed it. In the back of a kitchen. Then we nailed it. Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.